40 projects, haven't lost money, haven't lost green cards, and that's all verifiable.
Meet Brian Oster, president of EB-5 Capital, a firm that has raised over $1 billion to help foreign investors secure U.S. residency through strategic investments. With 15 years of real estate and management experience, Brian has been a key driver behind the firm's success. Under his leadership, EB-5 Capital has completed over 40 projects, achieved a 100% approval rate, and helped families from more than 70 countries realize their American dream. I'm Shay Zamanian, founder of the American Legal Center. I'm going to act as your EB-5 guru, curating the best content of EB-5 so you don't have to spend time scouring the internet looking for that. I'm going to introduce you to all the established players in the EB-5 game and why they're important. I'll help you analyze, ask all the important questions about the EB-5 process so you have actionable takeaways to apply it to your EB-5 visa journey. Our offices are based in downtown Dubai. We are a team of US licensed lawyers and are your active guides through the EB-5 process. We help you gather all your documents for your application, find the best projects to invest in, and coordinate your filing with Washington, D.C. We have filed the most EB-5 applications from the region and have the experience and breadth of knowledge to ensure your success. Now let's get started. Welcome to EB-5 Unplugged. We're live and loaded from our offices in downtown Dubai. I am Shay Zamanian, your host and the director of the American Legal Center. Your first point of venture when considering the EB-5 program, as we're your active guides from A to Z. Let's meet today's guests. Brian and Haya, you guys are here all the way from DC. Brian, yes. You're from DC. Haya, you're based out of Egypt. And you've joined us here today to talk more about the EB-5 Capital Regional Center.
Correct.
So we've been working together for over a decade now, and I would definitely put you guys up on my short list of the better regional centers within the EB-5 community. And so I'm so happy to have you guys here. So just let's kind of get to know you guys a little bit more. So Brian, you were the membership chairman of IIUSA, among other sort of roles that you've taken on. You've gone to the better universities, such as Cornell and Georgetown. You're a soccer dad. You like to ski. Yeah? Mm-hmm. And you spent some time in China. So that's a little bit, I want to know a little bit more about that, because back in the day, about 15 years ago or so, it was like the wild, wild west, when everyone just went to China, as over 80% of all EB-5 applications were coming from China. What do you remember from those days, and how does it sort of differ from the community and atmosphere today?
Sure. Everyone has a crazy origin story to get into EB-5, so mine's no different. I was living in New York City after college for 5 or 6 years. I was teaching in Brooklyn. 2 friends of mine and I decided to quit. We moved to China just on a whim. No money, no belongings, no anything.
I love that.
We were young and hungry. Went to China, taught there, traveled, had fun. I got into EB-5 in a very, very unique way. So I was teaching some young kids, and I met their parents. And one of them was a man from Belgium who had different businesses in China. He owned factories, he owned car washes, and over time he invited me onto his team because I could speak Chinese for a decent standard of Chinese.
He did or you did? You did.
I did. I spoke. So
you speak Mandarin?
I do. Okay. Not as good as my team thinks I do, okay. But I do a little bit.
That's big.
And we were working with, actually next door to this office, is a company called Sinopec. I saw big oil and gas company in China. We were doing meetings with Sinopec, and one of the top guys at Sinopec asked me at a dinner, said, "Hey, I want to move to America." And this was 2008. And EB-5 was not on the map at all back then. And that's how I got to EB-5.
And that was the time when, we're in the downturn of the global economic crisis. So it was really the beginning stages of EB-5
Yeah,
when you got in.
Before '08, developers didn't need money.
Exactly.
There were banks were lending. There was equity everywhere. The recession came, and then I was in China, and developers needed money, and regional centers were starting, and that's kind of how it all came together.
So right place, right time, right conversation,
Correct.
and then you ended up in China.
A little bit of luck.
I've heard a lot of interesting stories about the Wild Wild West, where you had like basketball players, famous basketball players, show up to EB-5 conferences trying to pitch the EB-5. And of course, we had projects such as Hudson Yards, just vacuuming up all the clients. So it must have been a really exciting time. And so compared to those times, where are we now and where are we sort of heading towards?
Yeah, the program's in a lot better space than I think back then, right? You had the biggest, sexiest, craziest project with the celebrities, and it didn't lead to safety often.
Definitely.
Right? And now you have less regional centers. Almost all of them are independent regional centers that only protect the investor, right? Not affiliated with the developer. And there's a true focus on security of capital, security of green card, and really care for the investors.
Absolutely. So I just want to spend maybe a minute talking about this specifically. About a year and a half ago, Congress got together to bring and implement new changes to strengthen the program. Some of those changes included the fact that there needs to be greater accountability on behalf of the regional center, greater transparency in having to report and file your regional center, provide your financials, let the administrators know if there's any big changes within the structure of your regional center. And because of these regulations, it's become harder for a lot of sort of medium or fray players within our community. And so for that reason, there's been a reconciliation where a lot less people have been in this space. A lot of people have dropped off. And the better players are now able to sort of step forward and shine even better.
Yeah, it hasn't for the groups that work with you over the past decade plus, hasn't changed all that much, because all the protections that are now enforced today, we did them back then anyway.
True.
It's just more more time consuming, more expensive. We have a team. I don't know how many people do we have? 45.
That's a very good point.
It's a big number for, this is all we do, right? Other groups, they do real estate sales, or they maybe have developed or law firm. We just do EB-5. That's all we do. And to do it right, you need 40 people.
I could not agree with you more. I think you need to be laser focused on specifically what it is that you're doing. Us based in our offices here in Dubai, if we were pitching Greece and Portugal and all sorts of things, it creates a little bit of confusion when you're comparing, all these different programs. You guys are laser focused on the EB-5 and providing fantastic projects, and have been doing so for quite some time. And yes, and of course, us here in Dubai, we consult on just the EB-5 program. So I think that matters. When you go to an Italian restaurant, you don't expect to eat sushi, do you? So if you're looking for something very specific, why not go to the market leaders? With that, I want to go over to Haya. Haya, you are the client relations manager for EB-5 Capital, and the clients coming out from this region, which is the Middle East and North Africa.
Okay.
So you've been working with us for quite some time and helping a lot of our clients. Mm-hmm. And so when there's questions in relation to the project, you are the first point in venture for the client to be able to ask questions, get more reporting from you, and you guys have been very helpful in that. So what do you see that might be different for the investors and clients coming out of this region versus, other regions, either, Europe or Asia? How are we sort of different coming from this region?
Okay, thank you, Shay. So I've been with EB-5 for a little over 5 years now. And I manage the investors that are coming from the MENA region. The majority of our investors here, they tend to do their due diligence, spend a lot of time reading the project documents. They attend a lot of seminars. They use all of the online resources to try and educate themselves. They read a lot online, which could be a good thing, could make it more challenging for us later on. So in general, there's a lot of similarities, of course, but I feel like investors here definitely take more their time before proceeding. The process itself could take up to like 6 to 12 months before joining, completing the investment, and filing.
There is a greater lead time. And I think all those things that you're saying are positive. I agree with you. The people coming from this region are asking really good questions. And I love nothing more than the clients to come in and ask the best types of questions. I think a lot of the troubles that we had with EB-5 15 years ago back in China,
they weren't asking enough questions. I'd rather go over all the questions before they subscribe and make the investment than come 3 years later having them ask me, how do I get my money back?
Exactly. And I think some of the things, the bad stories that we've heard from the EB-5 community come from these pockets where people maybe weren't able to even ask the high level of questions. Why? Because at the time when EB-5 first came about, you had documents that were only provided in English, right? And so when you have 80% of the applications coming from China and they don't speak the language, they're just offered the opportunity to get to the US at a ticket price, I think that allowed a lot of leeway for regional centers to cause issues. And it's issues that we still need to deal with because clients, might do a lot of Googling, as you said, and would ask us, is this true? Does these things happen? We can talk about the positives of the EB-5 space as much as we want, but I want to address also maybe some of the negatives, because as a matter of logic, there's better players such as yourselves, and then there's, people that are not the better players.
Yeah, I always tell investors, first thing you should do is Google. Google us, Google me, Google our CEO, Angelique Bruner, Google our projects, and just do your own research. I think investors here are now in a much better place than 10 years ago, because now you have regional centers with massive track records.
True.
Right? We've done we're opening our 40th project. So we've done 40 projects, haven't lost money, haven't lost green cards, and that's all verifiable, just with a minimum amount of research. I think back then, there were 6 projects, there were 7 projects on your track records. You're not sure, and they also didn't go through the whole life cycle.
Right.
So we've had projects that have repaid. We have nearly 15 projects that have repaid. We have 2,500 investors. We have investors from 75 countries. So once you see a 15-year track record, I think investors will feel a lot more comfort.
When clients are looking at EB-5 and they are embarking on this new process, sometimes they don't know the right questions to ask. For example, they wouldn't even know to ask, for example, have you gone through the entire life cycle? How many clients have you actually paid off in full? Have there been instances where projects have failed? And so you guys make our lives easy because, what we do out of our offices here in Dubai is we help the client formulate the questions that you should be asking. We don't work for one particular project or anything like that. We're here to consult for the client. But thankfully, with you guys, as we've been working for over a decade with each other, thankfully we haven't had any mishaps. So all of our clients have been happy. So yes, the takeaway I would present to the audience, to the client that's looking to embark on this path, is let us help you formulate the right questions to ask. And it's okay to not know the right questions to ask, because obviously this is new to you, and you shouldn't be shy through this process, which then takes us to the next segment. So what we're gonna do is rapid fire questions for Brian.
All right.
So you've got milliseconds. You're going to have to come up with answers straight away. All right.
All right.
Are we ready? Okay. What is your biggest accomplishment?
Helping build this fantastic team.
What is a memory that makes you smile?
Time skiing with my dad.
Biggest pet peeve?
Typos.
Favorite things about being president of EB-5 Capital Regional Center?
The people like Haya.
Oh. What languages do you speak?
Chinese, and English, of course.
Give me one word. How do you describe success?
When you can look at a client in their eyes and you can say, we did the right thing by you.
I like that. Aside from Dubai, what is your dream destination?
Ooh, Cairo.
Okay.
I'm waiting for you.
Hai is based out in Cairo. So if you weren't in the current profession, and I asked myself this, what would you be doing?
Basketball coach.
Okay. Okay, we hit time, so we'll just leave it at that.
Do a couple more. One more.
All right, okay.
Last one.
We got to go quick. If you could swap lives with a celebrity, who would it be?
Ooh, wow. If I can swap lives.
This is why we've lost time.
Next one.
All
Pass.
right. Interesting facts about yourself. Give me one fact that nobody knows about you. Nobody from the office knows about you.
I like to bake.
Okay. We're all getting cookies later. What is your dream car?
Range Rover.
Oh, I like that. Okay. I love this one, and this is something that I ask to anybody. So, if you had all the money in the world, what would you do with it?
I would donate to those in need.
Okay. Well, thank you. And that is the end of our rapid roundup. Okay. So let's kind of get back to the substance of our discussion today. We've talked about, how you've decided to enter the EB-5 space. We've talked about the Wild Wild West. How did you know that EB-5 Capital and that regional center, of course you were there from the very beginning and helping it grow, but how did you know that this was your path? And who was it that was with you throughout that trajectory?
Yeah, that was our founder, Angelique Brunner. I met her in 2009 through IUSA. We were both members. She was just building up her business. She needed a partner. You've met her multiple times.
She's been to Dubai more than once.
She is a kind of a godfather, or godmother of EB-5.
Absolutely.
She's the reason why I'm here.
Definitely a vanguard within the EB-5 space. So, Angel, if you're out there, hellos from Dubai, and we miss you. Come and see us soon so we can get you on our podcast.
Yes.
Okay, and so with EB-5 Capital, how do you maintain the reputation? Because your competitors, I'll be straightforward with you, as I've worked with your competitors, everyone's looking to take a stab at, and to try and break perhaps the notion of your impeccable track record. So, keeping that, having sort of a reputation is one thing, but keeping it for over a decade is another. So how do you ensure that? What are some of the safeguards? Talk to me about that.
Yeah. Great question. So, couple answers. First, it's our team and our people. We've had incredible longevity. Hai has been with us 5 years, but we have people that have been here 10 years. And I think turnover really hurts our competitors. When you have someone 1 or 2 years and they leave, we have people that have been here a long time, and that's because we treat them well. Second thing, I think it's more about not what we do, but what we did not do, right? So we passed on lots of projects that we knew would fail.
Yeah.
We kept it very, simple. Half of our projects, or more than half, were just multifamily projects in Washington, D.C., kind of neighborhood by neighborhood.
That's been your bread and butter. Medium-sized projects with developers that you know well.
Developers that you trust. Having banks in the deal is very important. Keeping the EB-5 size moderate, not too high, you don't want it too low, because then you have no power.
Right.
You don't want it too big, because then it's too big. And choosing the right real estate asset class and the right location. And, for every deal that we bring to you, that we bring to Dubai, we've bypassed 15 of them.
For sure.
So I think it's just, slow and steady wins the race, right? We never tried to do the sexiest, biggest project in EB-5. We just tried to do good, stable, vanilla projects.
You bring a good point. Haya, what would you like to add?
I also wanted to say that there were times where we didn't have available projects, and us from the investor relations team, we would go to Brian like, we need a project now, but there weren't any, the investments team was not ready with a project at the time, and we had no project for like 2-3 months, and that didn't put any pressure on them to just accept any project right. to have something in the market. So definitely.
Yep.
That's a blessing and a curse also, because when we don't have a project and you and your clients wait 2 months and then we have one out, right. They sell out pretty quickly.
They do.
So
that's definitely one thing that I want to sort of talk about within the EB-5 industry is if something seems, first of all, too big. One thing that you didn't do is you do these mega projects that are unwieldy. It would take, a monstrous institution to refinance and to repay back investors. One thing that you guys have done well is, stick to medium-sized projects that are manageable. And that's maybe one thing that investors out there should watch out for, is anything that seems too glitzy, too out there, too much attention might not be the best deal on the market. And so that's definitely one thing that we do with our clients is when they come in and meet us in our offices in downtown Dubai, is we do compare and we look at the fundamentals of the project. Does it actually make sense? There's a lot of red flags that throughout the years I've seen with different projects. For example, they'll talk about developer equity, right? The developer is putting in $50 million of their own funds. Well, how are they pledging that? Well, they own the land, don't they? Right? And then you do a valuation on the land from a third party and it's only worth, cookies, which you're going to bake later.
Yeah.
So
let me add 2 things on that. So we did do one very glitzy project, the Ritz-Carlton in New York.
Correct.
I'm very proud of that project.
Me too.
Yeah, that was Main, New York City, Marriott, Ritz-Carlton. You can't beat that.
We can talk about the Ritz-Carlton, New York City. That is a perennial project that I talk to my investors about when I refer to what is a nice example of an EB-5 project. I think back in 2018, a lot of our clients...
They loved it.
Yeah, and so clients were able to get their approvals. The hotel is up and running, which is important because in the midst of all of this, we did have COVID. We did have an opportunity for projects and regional centers to sort of fall back on their promises. But you guys stood true. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, some of your own personal funds were placed into the project to ensure the longevity and the success of that project. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've done a lot of hotels, a lot of Marriotts. The ones that we did right before the pandemic went through tough times, like every hotel in the world.
Right.
We put some of our own money in some of them to kind of help prop them up. Fortunately, now that we're post-pandemic, they're doing great, and the hotel industry is thriving again.
Absolutely. And notwithstanding sort of the waves in the economy, correct me if I'm wrong, you haven't had a failed project?
Nope.
No bankruptcies?
No. We were lucky that the Ritz-Carlton was going through construction during COVID.
Yeah.
Thank
That's
God.
true. That's true.
And
if it had opened in the
During
winter
COVID.
of 2019, it would have been a little dicey, but it was also a 3-year construction build, so it's a big project. So yeah.
So when we discuss, how do you maintain your reputation, we've learned a few things. Okay, keep within a recipe, perhaps the medium-sized projects with developers that you understand. That's 1. 2, if need be, you've personally gotten active in ensuring the funds were necessary for the project. If that means investing in your own capital, you've done so. And 3, also, it's maybe a little bit of luck. The fact that the Ritz-Carlton was going through construction during COVID.
Everyone needs luck in this world. Correct.
But what I do understand about luck is the harder you work, the more you seem to have. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I agree.
Okay. So in terms of the regional center, is there any sort of takeaways? What would you like to present to that investor that's considering EB-5, unsure about it, maybe some last remarks about the regional center.
Well, I would say to an investor, I think if you find a good consultant like yourself and you find a good regional center, and like you mentioned, there might be 5 in the industry with that kind of track record, and you have a good immigration lawyer, that's important as well.
True.
If you have those 3, you're 90% there.
Kate sends her hellos.
Thank you.
And her fondness.
You're there, right? A consultant, regional center, immigration attorney. You have to have a way to get your funds out of wherever they're from. An interesting part of this market is that clients are born in so many different places, and their funds are in so many different places. So it's not the same recipe each time. And then you need a little bit of faith and a little bit of trust in EB-5 that
true.
the people that you work with are good people. And we always offer up our past investors to new investors who want to have phone calls or video calls, just to say, hey, how did it go for you?
Yeah.
And this is also not going to be like a short relationship. This is like a 7-year relationship. So I always tell investors, after you invest, it's not like we'll never talk again. We're constantly in contact post-investment. So yeah, you just have to invest with a regional center that you feel most comfortable with.
You're right. It is a long journey. It's at least a 5-year journey. And, Brian, you mentioned faith. You've got to have faith. That's without a doubt. You have to finally instill trust in, the consultant, attorney of record, regional center. There's a lot of players here, and you've got to trust all of them. How do you even begin to create and instill that trust within the clients? One thing that I will tell a lot of our clients that come and see us and ask sort of what is the best project, or how do I know if I'm doing the right thing? Maybe it isn't just trying to find out the person's intentions. So with EB-5 Capital, I understand their intentions. As I've gotten to know them for a decade, it's not always about the intention. I think it's also just experience, right? When hiccups happen, and at times they do happen, who is the best equipped to deal with these hiccups? Congress enacted new rules a year and a half ago, and it wasn't but for the bigger players that were able to navigate all these changes that came. So I wouldn't always look at, this guy seems really nice. I got a good vibe from this project. It's not about that. It's about experience. Do they have experience in going through that full circle, which is, again, the repayment of the clients, approvals on everything, not just I-526E, but now 829, which is even more important. This notion of government, when we hear government, and gives us a sense of calm from the region. Why is that? Because if the government's involved, then surely everything's going to be square and tied up. And everything is essentially guaranteed because the government's involved. Based on the contracts clause of the U.S. Constitution, the state cannot entrench itself in private enterprise, meaning if anyone's telling you that this is government-backed, you need to run away. You need to know that they are lying, unfortunately, to your face and perhaps in writing. So the U.S. government will never build a Marriott hotel. They will never build construction development. If you're hearing the term government in marketing materials, it's because it's hoping that it will provide a guise in what's really going on. They're really trying to, impress upon you that the government's involved, but they are never involved. So again, when you're looking at projects, perhaps have us help you get some, list out some questions to ask. Because yes, so the government's never involved. That's one. Another thing you brought up is the capital stack, right? So what is a capital stack? It's a financial term that describes, you've got a Marriott hotel in downtown Los Angeles. There's a lot of different people that are putting money into the project. For example, the developer is saying, I'm going to put in $50 million of my own cash. And then you mentioned a bank loan. So if Bank of America is lending $20 million on that project, that's a positive thing, right? Because it's a second set of eyes on that project. And of course, there can be the EB-5 portion where foreign investors such as yourself would be investing into that project. Usually we like to see a maximum of what, maybe 40% coming from investors abroad. The rest should be covered by the developer themselves or a bank loan, correct?
We're probably right now 40% bank and call it 40% EB-5 and 20% sponsor. Maybe 3 years ago it was 60% bank, right?
Right.
Developers like to max out the bank because it's usually cheap. It's cheap, quick, easy money, right? It's already there. Brian and I don't have to go out to Dubai and China and Taiwan and raise it and syndicate it. It's just there. It's ready to go, which is why you'll almost always see EB-5 behind a bank, right, in the second position. But that can change because if bank rates are increasing, you might see EB-5 in the first position now. So
let's see what happens.
Fluid.
It seems like, the trajectory is to stay kind of where we're at, if not maybe sort of teeter down in time in terms of the federal rates. But you brought up a really good point. EB-5 is expensive because clients ask, why am I not getting 8% return on this stuff? Well, if you're getting 8% return, why doesn't the developer just then take funds just entirely from the bank and not have to do, the fundraise and to do, all this government reporting and all this sorts of stuff. So that may be one of the reasons why, clients get maybe at most 1% return. I've seen projects that, repay back or claim that they'll repay 12 or 13%. This is all a red flag. A stable investment in the US, right? Not in the emerging markets where we sort of reside, but in the US, if you're getting 6, 7, or 8%, that's wild. That's amazing. But for you to have a secured or guaranteed investment at anything even beyond that, and to throw an immigration component in there, I think that's definitely a red flag and you should watch out for.
Yeah, we're looking to fill the gap, right? So developer will max out the bank. Developer will have their own cash and land. So it's that middle piece.
Right.
And without EB-5, that middle piece, that second piece, you might call it mezzanine or preferred equity, that could be 15%. If we charge 15%, they'll never use us. Because they'll use a fund that already has money, ready to go. The only way EB-5 works is if we cut our rate.
Right.
Big time. Now developers love us. If we cut our rate, we have to cut investors' rate.
Well, here's the thing is you're coming in at a discount, but there are also, why would the client, still go with it in terms of, they're getting a discount, yes, but there's also costs to the developer because EB-5 construction is different than regular construction. Sometimes if they have the means, they can finish the construction cycle in, perhaps 14 months. But because it's EB-5 and because there's government reporting and job creation fundamentals, they have to spread the construction over perhaps sometimes 1.5 to 2 years, if not more. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's also it's very costly to do this business correctly with all the reporting, all the requirements, with the RIA. We have a fund administrator that we have to work with. We have securities counsel, we have immigration counsel, we have real estate counsel. We have to fly around the world and to do it right. It's an expensive proposition for sure.
And this is really not the investment to only focus on profit. This is what I tell the majority of investors. I think when you're investing in EB-5, the true cost of the green card is forgoing the interest. So don't focus on interest rates. Don't go work with a regional center that doesn't have a good track record, that needs to offer you high interest rate to attract the investors, because then you're getting 8 or 10%, but you're risking your capital contribution.
You're absolutely correct. I think the client, your main objective is to get your green card, get it quickly, and get your money out, and then go off and make an investment where your immigration is not tied in.
I often say 6% of nothing is nothing.
Exactly.
So protect your capital first.
Protect your capital first. Where are we headed? So you guys have new projects coming out. So maybe give us a sneak peek into your pipeline, what's coming out, what locales.
Sure. We are trying to have two pipelines, one high unemployment, one rural. We just had our first rural project recently. It sold out very well. We're still looking to do multifamily in major markets. We have one in Atlanta, we have one in Miami, obviously Washington, D.C. Rural projects are a little more difficult. You have to kind of, it's a diamond in the rough, which is why we were one of the last ones to the rural game. Mm-hmm. We saw 50 of them. They didn't meet our standard. We have a few around ski resorts that we're doing. We have a amphitheater that we're doing. We have some Marriott hotels that we're doing. So we're trying to have both options for clients.
I sense coming from the region, clients ask for rural. This has been the push, but I'm going to go out on a limb here. Please correct me if I'm wrong, as we're all here to get educated on the topic. But, rural might not be the best bet because TEA, for example, is you guys just got an approval in 15 or 16 months. So the ability to get a quick approval is, around the same as rural and TEA.
Yeah, you might get a rural one in 8 months. You might get a high unemployment one in 13 months. So is the extra 5 months worth maybe a lower quality of project?
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what I want to talk about.
Depends on the client's needs as well. If someone already has their kids here in school and they're not really in a rush to move to the US, they can wait the year and a half, then why should they choose rural?
Well, now we've got concurrent filing, which bridges that gap anyway. Mm-hmm. But one thing I'll say about rural, which, in our previous discussions, you guys seem to be on board. You're not going to just jump the gun. Just because there's a rush or demand for rural, you're going to look for quality projects. And I think based on my observance of, rural projects that are out there, the issue is that if you're pumping $40 to $100 million into barren land, and that's why it's called rural, because there's nothing there, how are you going to recapitalize on that? If you're trying to build housing somewhere where previously housing was not there, perhaps the market's telling you, don't build housing there, right? Otherwise, the market yields and people would have already done that. So that's one thing to be careful with this idea and this push for rural, as I've seen a lot of other regional centers push for this. Does the project make sense ultimately?
Yeah.
Can you recapitalize, get your funds back?
The rurals that we're doing are really centered around tourist destinations. We're at ski resorts. We did one in Vermont. We're going to do one in Utah.
Vermont ski resort.
Yeah, not that one, but a better one. And then other kind of resort type destinations where there's already demand. There's already people going there. I agree with you. Just a normal multifamily development in the middle of nowhere might not get you your money back.
You guys have been amazing. So any last wishes for our viewers out there? Any sort of...
We love working with you.
Thank you, man.
We love your team.
Thank you. Love working with you guys.
We love your new office. And we love coming to Dubai.
Yep. Hopefully we'll get you guys... Well, you're going to come a lot more often. Brian will get you guys coming out more often. So again, if you're looking to embark on the EB-5 path, definitely our numbers just right here below. It'll magically appear. And please reach out. Have a meeting with me. Our first consultation's free. Let's talk about what your needs and wants are. Let's talk about, the future plan, the multi-generational plan for your future kids and how we're going to get you there. And I'll help you sort of devise the right questions to ask when you're looking at different regional center projects. Thank you, everyone, for being here and reaching out.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap. So EB-5 Unplugged.